You're listening to Titans of the Trades. I'm your host, Ryan England, author of Hire Better People Faster and creator of the CoreFit hiring system, a proven process to help growing companies attract and retain only the best. I'm on a mission to revolutionize the perception of the trades and elevate it to new heights. After growing up in a blue-collar family, my passion for making the trades cool again runs deep. If you're a titan in the industry and want to be on my show, stick around until the end and I'll reveal how you can be my next guest. It's not every day that I meet a subject matter expert who is also a titan of the trades. So excited for you to learn from Wade Swikle today. My name is Ryan England. I am the host of Titans of the Trades. Welcome back to another episode. Wade is the CEO and founder of Two College Brothers Moving, but he is so passionate about the industry that he has actually started a conference, a training program, and even written a book to share his knowledge with everyone. And whether you are in moving or not, the principles and the strategies he's about to share will transform your business and your life. I want to introduce on today's show, Wade Swikle, the CEO and founder of Two College Brothers Moving. Wade, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here, Ryan.
You know, it's funny because I just recorded on your show a couple of weeks ago. I feel like I've known you forever now. Excited to have you here because you're doing some really cool stuff in the moving industry. And I would consider you a titan of the trade, not just because that's your personal brand and you have titans everywhere, but also because of what you're doing, you're making it happen, and you're really invested and care about these people. So tell the listeners a little bit about you and what you're up to right now.
Yeah, so started a moving company back in college about 13 years ago. The earliest foundation of the moving company, I started probably closer to 14, 15 years ago. It didn't quite go as I planned in the very beginning, and I worked for another moving company until I took the full leap and I did it the right way. I got the license, the insurance. That was in Gainesville, Florida. I went to the University of Florida. And over a decade, 12 plus years, I've been really going all in on the moving industry. So of course I run my own company, Two College Brothers Moving and Storage. But the goal from the beginning was to create something that we could franchise. Last spring of 2023, we actually sold our original location as our first franchise. We've sold one other franchise since in San Antonio, Texas, and just opened up another corporate location in Naples, Florida. So we've got 4 locations now for our moving and storage company, Two College Brothers. But really what I've done is position myself and my personal brand and our company, Two College Brothers, is kind of like in the center of an ecosystem around moving and storage. Because when I first started off, there were really no resources for movers. You know, it was a lot of trial and error trying to, figure out this business just from the ground up, trial by fire. And I was a college kid and, I had these ambitions to create this scalable model. But it wasn't until probably 2017, 2018 that I finally was able to connect with mentorship. And I started my own podcast called the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. And that really opened up a lot of doors to be able to learn from some of the best people in our industry. And from there, we've launched a conference called the Moving Titan Retreat. I love the fact that you have all things Titan as well. And the Moving Titan Retreat is a conference that we host primarily geared for the independent moving community. A lot of owners that own their own independent moving companies in an industry that has traditionally been dominated by van lines and national brands. It's still a very fragmented industry. And we're trying to create a lot of those resources that I wished I had had when I was starting out. And we've built out an online training program. The only other real training programs in our space were probably recorded on VHS back in like the 90s. And so there wasn't like a modernized approach to training. And I've recently published a book called Hometown Titans. So we've got all these different pieces around the moving industry in an effort really to uplift it, because everybody has a horror story from moving and there's a stigma around it. Typically it's a low barrier to entry business with a high barrier to success. And we're starting to see a lot of other resources start to emerge. And I just like to be at the forefront of that and again, the center of just this ecosystem to help other moving companies grow. Because I know if I help other people grow, it's ultimately going to help myself grow. And that's ultimately the goal. The goal is to continue to scale my own moving company, but to be, an influencer, so to speak, around the industry to help other people achieve the success that, I'm looking at also trying to achieve.
You are one busy man. Conferences and books and training programs and franchising, like so many things. I'd love to learn just a little bit more about this franchising. We all know what franchises are. And I think that when it comes to the trades, one of the things that a lot of people could relate to is this idea of a remote operations team. Whether you're in construction and you've got a job site a couple hours away and everything needs to operate there, or maybe you are a service contractor and you've got another location an hour or two away and it's got a GM and it's got its own little CSR and a department. It's got all of these things. I mean, very similar to the idea of the franchise. But one of the things I know you believe about the franchise is that idea of creating ownership. So talk to me a little bit about the decision to start a franchise with two college brothers and really where it came from. Like you wanted that ownership component to it.
Yeah. I think a lot of companies say that they want a franchise, when they're starting out without fully understanding what the franchise model is or should be. You hear about a lot of franchises like your McDonald's or, a lot of home service industry franchises. And it's really a way to go into business for yourself, but not by yourself. And that's one thing that I realized that if I were to have started with a support system, I could have scaled so much faster rather than just trying to figure out the entire recipe and the formula on my own. And in a business like moving, it's heavily referral based. So there's a large benefit to having an ownership presence in the market that you're trying to service and ultimately to become a pillar of your own community. That's the type of franchisee that we're looking for, is not somebody who's necessarily just looking for a turnkey operation where they can just invest, a bunch of money into something and then walk away and just let it kind of run itself. Ultimately, we'd love for our franchisees to be able to get there and to learn how to delegate and to be able to have that well-oiled machine. But we really want the representation of our brand in different communities by people that are involved in their communities, that are constantly looking for the next opportunity, because different marketing in our industry works in different markets. So we might find that radio works really well in some markets and it doesn't work in another market, or maybe TV or postcards or, certain elements to the digital marketing, which you can go down a whole rabbit hole with. And we want to be able to provide a lot of the brand leverage for them to be able to take and the recipe and the formula to be able to follow without necessarily, having to reinvent the wheel, but a little bit of freedom to experiment with some new things as well. So, I love the idea of having that ownership presence. It's a reputation-based business. It's a community-based business, referral-based business. And what I've found is that, companies in our space that try to go open a lot of corporate locations, a lot of times will struggle because there are a lot of different elements that, unless you have that ownership presence or somebody who might be a rock star that is a current existing team member, it's sometimes hard to motivate the management to be looking for those opportunities and getting involved in the community level like an owner might otherwise be willing to do.
Yeah. And the thing too about, they've got some skin in the game, right? As the franchise owner, they've got some skin in the game. They've got their reputation is on the line. It's not just rolls up to the CEO of the company. And so many times I hear, especially service contractors go, I wish I could just find someone to think like me. I just wish I could find someone that would act like me. It's like, well, you can when you franchise because you're looking for that ownership, that entrepreneurship mentality, but also they know that they've got the support of the home office or corporate to help them through those things. So what are some of the big challenges that you saw when you brought someone new and who had that ownership mentality? And what are some of the things that you've been able to do to help them overcome that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, some of the challenges, sometimes you're getting somebody that doesn't have any experience in the moving and storage space. So you're not only teaching them about the moving industry, but they might not have business ownership experience as well. So there's certain principles that are general business-based principles that, you kind of forget when you've been owning your own business for so long. It becomes second nature that you have to really make sure that you cover all of the fundamentals of business ownership, but also teach them the moving and storage industry. And so we provide a lot of ongoing support, weekly calls, constant communications over text groups and threads. But I think the biggest way to overcome that is to create really detailed but simple and easy to follow systems and processes. So we've got a program that we use called Trainual, and that allows us to basically build out checklists, systems and processes, graphics, videos, a lot of different learning approaches because different people learn differently. There's audio learning, there's visual learning, there's kinesthetic learning. There's a lot of different things that we try to cover all of that so that people have the tools and the recipe that they can follow when they're starting off in the business, and teach them about the fundamentals. So every single role in our company is a role that at one point in time I've done myself. And, at this stage, I've delegated out a lot of those different roles. But by doing it myself, I was able to really understand the nuances of everything from our dispatch and operation side to the movers and the drivers being on the trucks, to the sales and the marketing, the customer service, the HR and the recruiting. There's a lot of different parts that go into that. And we're constantly fine tuning certain areas that we find. Every market can be a little bit different in some ways, but there's also a core fundamental policy and process that's pretty universal across all markets. So we in the beginning, I wrote out this extremely detailed system, process, handbook, but I realized that always wasn't the most effective, because it could be the best process in the world, but unless it's getting followed, it doesn't matter. So I had to make sure that anybody with a 6th grade education could be able to understand and follow it, and then have processes that helped to hold the processes accountable. So basically a process to follow the process and make sure that everybody was being held accountable, and they all just worked in sync with one another. So that's, one of the benefits of franchising is you get that recipe, you get that playbook, as well as the ongoing support, because things evolve, technology evolves, trends evolve, markets evolve, and every market can be a little different. So it's important to have that ongoing support, but at the same time, have a solid fundamental recipe that is easily attainable by every level of the organization.
Well, and I imagine when you made that decision to franchise, knowing that you would need this, it almost forced your hand into creating these processes and having everything written down so that it could be understood at 6th grade level, different types of learning styles and everything else, which I find that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with being able to do that. They sort of expect people to be able to come in, they get to watch it once or twice, and then they know how to do it without any kind of documented process. And that doesn't work inside of a franchise. And I don't know that it works inside of having a remote operations, having people that are remote as well, which in construction and the trades, any of these, it's everybody's remote, right?
Yeah.
And no one is sitting in the same cube right next to you and can figure this out. So being able to document those processes, it's absolutely.
And having a process to find great people, because I mean, at the end of the day, you still have to have great A players on your team.
Yeah.
And so there's a process to be able to find and to be able to recruit and to train up good people that may not necessarily be familiar with the industry, whether they're starting off as a mover on the trucks or they're moving, they're a franchisee caliber person that has that ownership value. So, it's not just like, this is how you load a piece of furniture. We have a lot of those kind of things in our Tighten Up training online platform that we sell to other moving companies that are potentially competitors of ours. But there's more also a kind of a proprietary process for finding the good people, making sure that they're being held accountable, and you have those checks and balances in place to be able to keep them on board and keep them in great spirits and build out an excellent culture so that everybody's working in unison to help to grow the brand. And I know that's something that we talked a lot about when you came onto my podcast, and got a lot of really good nuggets out of that as well.
Yeah. And in the moving industry, my understanding is, correct me if I'm wrong here, but a lot of the movers themselves are part-time. It's a second job. It's a weekend job, that kind of stuff. Is that the model that you guys have followed, or that you guys promote, or do you guys focus more on the full-time employee?
Yeah. In the beginning, there's kind of no way around that because you may not have a full schedule to be able to give a mover a full-time job. But as the company evolves, those roles become a lot more consistent and a lot more steady. So at our Tampa location, our Gainesville location, most of our movers and drivers are primarily full-time. We might have a bench of movers or drivers that do work part-time. In an emerging market like the one we just opened down in Naples, we don't really have a choice but to have, people that might be an aspiring musician or athlete or artist, or maybe they're a teacher and they only want something on the weekends, which just happens to be when most people like to move, or in the summertime is when also most people like to move. That's our busiest season. So, it's a little bit of both. In the very beginning, it was heavily part-time based, even if we had the workload, because when I started off, we would mainly just hire my network, which was other college students. And so we had this system of being able to let people kind of choose their shifts built around their class schedules. Ran into some issues with that, though, because we didn't have that core starting lineup of 18 players where this is how they supported their families and their incomes. And we find that we get a better, more consistent quality mover and driver when you build the company up to the level where that this is their primary duty. So, as the company matures and you have enough work to start filling the schedule, we like to see full-time people in those roles. In the beginning, you might have to just work with a larger bench of part-time players, but because of the seasonality of the business and the fact that a lot of people like to move at the same times, it's usually the end of the week or the end of the month or the summertime are the most popular times for people to move. Sometimes we have to have that part-time lineup to be able to call on to maximize the schedule and make sure that, we're capitalizing during the busiest times.
That makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of, in moving, like it's something that usually people want to do it for some reason or another, but they do it around those peak demand times. And so you create that peak demand on the weekends, you have seasonality, you have part-time employees, full-time employees. You got to keep them all busy. Like you picked one heck of an industry to go into here. There's some challenges that you've overcome. What would you say is one of the greatest challenges that you overcame as an entrepreneur, whether it's in the franchising space or just in running a moving company, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, I think it's developing thick skin. Entrepreneurship's not for everybody. There's going to be setbacks no matter what industry you're in. Things are not always going to go perfectly. You're dealing with a lot of different personalities. It's a heavily people-oriented business because we don't have a lot of stuff that we just keep on a shelf that's like an inventory, like we're a retail store that we're selling. Our inventory is people. So being able to relate to that every type of person, whether it's somebody that's getting into more of like a blue collar position, like a mover might be, or somebody who's at a higher level position as the company evolves as a salaried manager or salesperson, being able to kind of navigate those types of relationships and that chemistry between the two, make sure that everybody's on the same page. And then the clientele, our clientele is primarily more affluent people that have the resources to hire movers and the need to hire movers because they've got a big house and nice furniture that they can't move themselves. Those are the people that are willing to pay for a moving service. So, you have to be able to relate to that affluent clientele while also relating to sometimes a more blue collar personnel. And it's just bridging that gap and having the people skills and the communication skills that it takes to be able to relate to all different types of people and to perpetuate that culture, because again, that's like our inventory. And we sell materials and stuff like that too on the shelves, but the primary source of revenue in our business is driven by labor. So I'd say that was kind of the biggest challenge, and having thick skin, because sometimes you're going to have difficult employees and difficult clients that you have to be able to maintain that customer service and that leadership for both sides of it. There was a lot of ups and downs in the beginning, and I talk a lot about how I navigated those in the book. So I'd say that was definitely the biggest challenge at this point. It seems to be a little more second nature, but it's also being able to now teach that and lead that so that I can delegate a lot of the responsibilities that come with those different aspects.
Well, it sounds like you are not only a champion of process and being able to adapt and change, but you're also living it out. You've developed some resources, including your book, which I want you to talk about here in just a second. But you actually have a conference and some training, and I believe it's just targeted towards movers at this point. Is that correct?
It is at this point. Our conference it's technically it's Titan Retreats. That's our official business name, Titan Retreats LLC. But up until now, we've only had the Moving Titan Retreat because that's the business that we understand. And it's a conference. We just had one at the beginning of this month with about 300 moving company owners from around the country. We've been doing that now for almost 3 years, where we've been having at least 2 conferences a year. Started off in an Airbnb as like a mastermind group where we brought together like 15 or 20 moving company owners for a weekend. And it's evolved into a full-scale conference that we've hosted at the JW Marriott here in downtown Tampa the last couple times. So that's we're looking at branching into more home services or small businesses potentially for the next one, and bringing in an array of speakers and experts in individual fields. I think that's kind of the next step with the Titan Retreat. But up until now, it's been primarily focused on moving, and as is our training program. It's what we know. I've got a couple partners on those ventures that we've been able to pull together our knowledge and resources, and we bring in some industry leading speakers to really communicate different aspects from hiring to training to sales, marketing, leadership, all these different components that come into running a business. So I think the next step is to branch into more of a home services or small business type of event, at least once a year, and then maybe doing one moving focused one each year. It's something that nobody else in our industry is really doing. Like I said before, there just weren't a lot of resources available to moving company owners for a very long time. And now, we kind of are leading the way in creating some of those, and we're starting to see some other people step up and capitalize on creating some of those resources for our industry specifically as well. So yeah, the Moving Titan stuff is, we'll see where it goes. But right now it's still heavily focused on the moving.
Well, a lot of the stuff that you shared, a lot of the stuff, the challenges and the ways you've overcome and everything else are so relevant to anybody whose primary revenue source is labor. That's everyone in the trades, right? Like everybody could use probably some of that, especially with the leadership elements and the process-based elements and everything else. You've also got a book that you just recently published. Tell us about that, and then let our listeners know how they can learn more and get a hold of you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the book, it's called Hometown Titan, Build a Local Business That Dominates Your Market. It's relevant to any small business or home service related business. Obviously, I talk a lot about real life stories from being in the moving industry in it. So it's especially valuable to moving company owners, but anybody can get it on Amazon. It's just Hometown Titan on Amazon. I think it's like $19.99 on there right now. Just released that at our last conference that we hosted at the beginning of this month, beginning of October, when this will air. But it distills a lot of the lessons that I've learned through mentorship, through trial and error, through just being in this business in the home services, and a lot of the concepts are based off of my values and my philosophy in business and what we look for in franchisees as well. So you can find it on Amazon, Hometown Titan, Build a Local Business That Dominates Your Market.
And we'll make sure to have a link in the show notes. Wade, how do people learn more about what you're up to? Is there a URL they can go to? Or how do they contact you?
Yeah, I'm pretty active on my own Instagram. It's just my name @Swikle. I control that account all on my own. You can connect with me on there through social media, send me a message. Would love to connect. I'd say that's probably the best way to connect with me. Of course, I'm on all the other social media platforms as well. If anybody wants to learn more about any of the stuff that we're doing or just kind of follow the journey, would welcome anybody to reach out.
Awesome. Wade, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you so much for your insight, just your leadership and your character in giving back to this industry that has taken so great care of you. Thank you for being on the show.
Absolutely, Ryan. Thank you for having me.
Ryan England here. Thank you so much for listening to Titans of the Trades. If you're a titan in the construction, manufacturing, or skilled trades industry and would like to be a guest on my show, please visit podcast.corematters.com. If you found value in this interview, would you share this episode on social media? Just do a quick screenshot on your phone and share it with a friend or post it on social. And if you know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show and include the hashtag Titans of the Trades. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you don't miss any episodes, click the subscribe button. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and get me one step closer to solving the labor crisis facing the industry. Want to know more about how we're doing that? Go to our website or follow me on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening.